Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Life Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Russell Reynolds, and we are back. We apologize for the little hiatus that we've been on. Life had some unexpected things, so we are finally back now. And before we get into the show tonight, we're going to plug a couple events. Beyond Life Paranormal Research Missouri, Cold Spotters Missouri, Beyond Life Paranormal Research LLC has a busy year this year. So we're going to get into the events that we're going to be at. Um, our first one coming up is August 8th. We will be at Bordertown Paracon. Um, we will be My dad and I are presenters this year there. We'll be talking about demonology and residentials for teams that want to get into residential cases. With that being said, come on out, free admission. They do not charge to get in the door. They got raffles, panels all day. So we guest speak at 3:40. So um, come on out, show your support. We got several friends that are going to be out there, teams. Our good friends Penn Paranormal out of Kansas will be there. Jason Walker, several others will be there. So come on out, show your support with that. We'll have merch out there, stuff for sale. Um, 3D printed figurines, paranormal equipment, shirts, you name it, it'll be there. Um, our next one, we will be at Crypticon KC. We are headlining the paranormal portion of it this year. This is the first year they're doing the paranormal at Crypticon KC. So come on out, see us. It's where the paranormal meets horror. So, um, with that being said, come on out, show your support, come see us. Crypticon gets busy, so make sure you get your tickets fast. They do take walk-ins, general admission, but make sure you get your tickets quick because if you want VIP, they will sell out quick. Then the next one we're going to be at is the West Kentucky Paranormal Expo. My brother from another mother, Kent Wilson's Paracon, will be out there with Outlaw Paranormal, the Wenda Brothers, Aaron G. Thompson, several other investigators, cryptid research, paranormal research. My dad and I are guest speakers there also. Um, so come on out and show your support on that. Also, Beyond Life Paranormal Research LLC will be there too. My cousin Kathy, she'll be there with our merch and selling stuff. And then in October, we will be at the Rock Island Roadhouse Esoteric Expo this year again. So come on out, see us. Last year they had over 2,000 people come through the door. So come on through, check that out. And I heard that Robert the Doll's sister is going to be there. So you don't want to miss that. And I guess you're able to hold her as well. And I guess they'll have another haunted museum there again this year. So come on out, check out all the teams. We got quite a few friends that are going to be out there as well. And the Beyond Life Paranormal podcast will be there. So come on through. We'll have our equipment there. So stop by our booth if you want to get interviewed or and say hi. And then and November 7th, we are investigating with my brother from another mother, Ken 10 Paranormal, at the Beatty Mansion in St. Joe, Missouri. Most of you people know this place from Portals to Hell. It's been on several TV shows, Paranormal Lockdown with Nick and Katrina. Um, One of the famous places here in Missouri. We will be there on November 7th investigating with Ken 10 Paranormal. Um, I do have confirmed October 14th and 15th and 16th of October. We are going to be at the movie theater at the haunted house. And Kathy will have the REM pods setting out at these. So if you're interested in buying REM pods at these Paracons, they will be available. Um, so Be sure to come on out, show your support. Hey, Gary, welcome back. I'm glad to see you guys. Let's run through the chat quick here. Hey, Jeanette. Yeah, we're back. Jeanette says hi, Kathy. Oh, that's weird. You couldn't see the pictures, Kathy. You and other people have issues. I don't know why that happens. So, everybody that's watching, hello. And tonight's show, we're going to do something a little different tonight again. Uh, Many of you know I dove down the rabbit hole on the serial killers on several other episodes. I did some of the notorious ones. Well, tonight we're going to do ones on some cases that have never been solved and these killers have never been caught. Um, Tonight we're going to talk about the Axemen of New Orleans, the Atlanta Ripper, the Ann Arbor Hospital, and then the Atlanta Lover's Lane. These are cold cases that have never been solved. All of a sudden, they just stop. Cops never solved them, never caught the people who were doing them. Um, so we're going to start with the bigger one, the Axemen of New Orleans. I actually have, here is the picture of the map of all the crime sprees he did and all the killings he did. The Axeman of New Orleans was an unidentified American serial killer who was active in and around New Orleans, Louisiana between May of 1918 and October of 1919. Press reports during the height of the public panic over the killings mentioned similar cases as early as 1911, but recent researchers have called these reports into question. The attacker was never Sorry about that. Equipment decides it wants to conk out for some reason. You get talking about this stuff, and then all of a sudden it conks out on you. But so the background as a killer, Effie implies, the victims usually were attacked with an axe, which often belonged to the victims themselves. In most cases, the back door of a home was removed by a chisel, which along with the panel was left on the floor near the door. The intruder then attacked one or more of the inhabitants with either an axe or straight razor. The crimes were not motivated by robbery, and the perpetrator never removed items from his victims' homes. The majority of the Axeman's victims were Italian immigrants or Italian Americans, leading many to believe that the crimes were authentically motivated. Many media outlets sensationalized this aspect of crimes, even suggesting mafia involvement. Despite lack of evidence, some crime analysis have suggested that the killings were sexually motivated and that the murderer was perhaps a sexual sadist. Mike conked out again. Sorry, guys. They said that he was a sexual sadist, specifically seeking female victims. Criminologists Colin and Damian Wilson hypothesized that the Axeman killed male victims only when they obstructed his attempts to murder women, supported by cases in which the women of the household was murdered but not the man. Less plausible theory is that the Axeman committed the murders in an attempt to promote jazz music suggested by Britain correspondent attributed to the killer, in which he stated that he would spare the lives of those who played jazz in their homes. On March 13th, 1919, a letter purporting to be from the Axeman was published in newspapers saying that he would kill again at 15 minutes past midnight on the night of March 19th, but would spare the occupants of any place where the jazz band was playing. That night, all of the city's dance halls were filled to capacity, with professional and amateur bands playing jazz at parties at hundreds of houses around town. There were no murders that night. Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me. They never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleans and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell police to be careful not to rile me, of course. I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense in the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but His Satanic Majesty, Francis Joseph, etc. But tell them to beware, let them not try to discover what I am, for it would be better that they were never born and to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there is any need of such warning, for I feel sure the police will always dodge me, as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep me away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleans think of me as the most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time, on the next Tuesday night, I'm going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, then so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it out on a specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and I crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that it may go well with thee, and I have been and am and will be the worst spirit that ever existed, either in fact or realm of fantasy, the Axeman. The Axeman was never caught or identified, as his crime spree stopped as mysteriously as it started. The murderer's identity remains unknown, although various possible identifications of varying plausibility have been proposed. His victims, he killed Joseph and Catherine Maggio, an Italian grocer, and his wife. They were attacked while sleeping inside their apartment on the corner of Upper Line and Magnolia Street. The killer broke into the residence and cut the couple's throats with a straight razor. Catherine's throat was cut so deeply that her head was nearly severed. The killer then struck both victims with an axe. Joseph survived the attack but died minutes after being discovered by his brothers, Jake and Andrew. The killer wrote a message on the nearby pavement reading, "Mrs. Maggio will sit up tonight just like Mrs. Tony," theorized to be reference to Anthony and Joanna Scambara, Italian grocers who were attacked Joanna fatally in 1912. Then the police found the bloody clothes of the murderer in the apartment as the killer had changed into a clean set of clothes before fleeing the scene. Couple search the premises was not performed after the bodies were removed, yet the bloodstained razor was later found on the lawn in a neighboring property. Police ruled out robbery as motivation for the attacks, as money and valuables left in plain sight were not stolen by the intruder. The razor was found to belong to Joseph's brother Andrew, who owned a barber shop on Camp Street. His employee Esteban Torres told police that Andrew had removed the razor from his shop 2 days prior to the murder, explaining that he had wanted to have a nick honed from the blade. Andrew, who lived in the adjoining apartment, reported hearing groaning noises through the wall at that night of the murders. Andrew blamed his failure to hear any noise related to the attack itself on his intoxicated state. Police, however, were nonetheless surprised that he failed to hear the intruder's forced entry into the home. Andrew became the police chief's prime suspect in the crime, yet was released after investigators were unable to break down his statement, as well as his account for an unknown man who was supposedly lurking near the apartment prior to the murders. Louis Bessumer and Harriet Lowe. During the early morning hours of June 27, 1918, Louis Bessumer and his mistress Harriet Lowe were attacked in their private quarters at the back of the Bessier's grocery, located in the corner of De Grosse and La Hart Streets. Bessumer was struck with a hatchet above his right temple, which resulted in possible skull fracture. Lowe was hacked over the left ear and left with one side of her face permanently paralyzed. The couple were discovered the following morning alive but crucially injured by the bakery wagon driver, John Zeneca, who came to the grocery to make a routine delivery. The axe, which had belonged to Bessumer himself, was found in the adjacent bathroom. Bessumer stated to the investigators that he had been sleeping when he was attacked with the hatchet. Almost immediately, police arrested Louis Abacan, a 41-year-old African-American man who had been employed in the grocery just a week before the attacks. No conflicting accounts of his whereabouts on the morning of the attack. Abacan was later released. However, the police were unable to gather sufficient evidence to hold him. Lowe became the center of a media circus and continually made scandalous and often false statements relating to both the attacks and the character of Bassami. After Bassami fell under suspicion of espionage following the discovery of foreign written letters in his possession. Ann Schneider. During the early mornings of August 5th, 1918, 28-year-old Ann Schneider, who was 8 months pregnant, awoke to find a dark figure standing over her and was bashed in the face repeatedly. Her scalp was cut open. Her face was covered in blood. Anne was discovered after midnight by her husband, Ed Schneider, who he returned late from work. Anna claimed that she remembered nothing of the attack and gave birth to a healthy baby girl 2 days later. Ed told police that nothing was stolen in the home besides $6 or $7 that had been in his wallet. The windows and doors of the couple's apartment appeared to have not been forced open, and authorities came to the conclusion that the woman was most likely attacked with a lamp that had been on the nearby table. James Gleason, who police said was an ex-convict, was arrested shortly after Anna was found. He was later released due to lack of evidence. Lead investigators began to publicly speculate that the attack was related to previous Bessumer and Maggio incidents. And then Joseph Romero, Pauline, and Mary Bruno awoke to the sound of a commotion in the adjoining room. Their elderly uncle, Joseph Romano, resided. Upon entering the room, the sisters discovered Romano had taken a serious blow to his head, in which resulted in 2 open cuts. The assailant was fleeing the scene as they arrived, yet the girls were able to distinguish that he was a dark-skinned, heavy-set man who wore a dark suit and slouched hat. Romano was able to walk to the ambulance once it arrived, but died 2 days later due to severe head trauma. His home had been ransacked, yet no items were stolen. Authorities found the bloody axe in the backyard and discovered that a panel on the back door had been chiseled away. The Cortimagella family, on the night of March 10, 1919, Italian immigrant Charles Cortimagella and his family, wife Rosie, and infant daughter Mary, were attacked in their residence on the corner of Jefferson Avenue and 2nd Street in Greta, Louisiana, a New Orleans suburb. Upon hearing the screams for the Cortimagella resident, grocer Engolando Giordano rushed across the street to investigate. He discovered that the Cortimella family had all been attacked by the axeman. Charles and Rosie had both suffered skull fractures and blows caused by the axe, which was found on their back porch. Mary was killed in her mother's arms from a blow to the back of the neck. Nothing was stolen, but the panel of the back door had been chiseled away. Charles was released 2 days after the attack while his wife remained in the care of doctors. Upon gaining full consciousness, Rosie made claims that Giordano and his 18-year-old son Frank were responsible for the attacks. Orlando, and 69-year-old man, was too poor of health to have done so. Frank, more than 6 foot tall, weighing over 200 pounds, would have been too large to fit through the panel on the back door. And then Steve Baca, on August 10, 1919, he was a grocer, was attacked as he slept in his bedroom by the axe-wielding intruder. Baca awoke during the night to find a dark figure looming over his bed. Upon regaining consciousness, Baca ran to the street to investigate the intrusion, found that his head had been cracked open. The grocer ran to the home of his neighbor, Frank Janusa, where he lost consciousness and collapsed. Nothing had been taken from the home. Yet again, the panel on the back door had been chiseled away. Baca recovered from his injuries but could not remember any details. This guy killed quite a few. Sarah Lawnman, she was attacked in her apartment. Neighbors came to check on the young woman who had lived alone, broke into the home. Lawman did not answer. They discovered a 19-year-old lying unconscious, suffering from severe head injury and missing several teeth. Intruder had entered the apartment through an open window and attacked Lawman with the blunt object. The bloody axe was discovered on the front lawn. And Mike Pepitone, he got attacked. He was awakened by a noise and arrived at the door of her husband's bedroom just as a large axe-wielding man was fleeing the scene. Pepitone had been struck in the head and was covered in his own blood. Blood splatter covered the majority of the room, including a painting of the Virgin Mary. Petone's wife and the mother of 6 children, was unable to describe any characteristics of the killer. And according to scholar Richard Warner, the chief suspect of the crimes was Frank Doc Murphy from 1875 to 1921, who used the alias Leon Joseph Montefiore. Murphy's Garden District jazz business, previously struggling, was noted by many of the community as doing unusually good business once the city was compelled by the threat of violence to hire jazz bands and play jazz records. Hey, Nicole, welcome in. Hey, Sandy, welcome in. Yeah, the Villisca axe murders. Yeah, this is kind of like, if you look at it, it's kind of like the same pattern of Rolling Stones to talk about the midnight. But yeah, if you notice, it's like the same pattern of Villisca. Guy breaks into the house in the middle of the night, and he breaks in the house in the middle of the night, and then he kills the family with an axe. So it's kind of like what this guy's doing, but only this guy is doing it over jazz music. If they play jazz, he don't hurt them, which is kind of strange. But yeah, Nicole, I'll reach out to you. We'll get you on. Yeah, it's definitely a mystery for sure, and it was never solved. I mean, it just stopped as of 1919. It just ended, and it's only Italian immigrants that they're going after. That's why the cops thought it maybe might have been mob hits, the mob doing it. Our next one we're going to talk about, I couldn't find no pictures on it, but this is from Atlanta, Georgia. The killer's called the Atlanta Ripper. The Atlanta Ripper was an unidentified serial killer who was suspected of killing at least 15 Atlanta women between 1911 and 1912. The background of this story: on May 28, 1911, the body of Belle Walker, a cook, was found 25 yards from her home on Garibaldi Street in Atlanta by her sister after she had failed to return home from work the previous night. Her throat had been cut by an unknown person. And the crime was reported in the Atlanta Constitution under the headline, "Negro Woman Killed, No Clue to Slayer." 4 weeks later, the body of another victim, Addie Watts, was also discovered with her throat slashed. As news of the murders continued to spread, the black population of Atlanta were filled with terror. On July 3rd, after the 8th consecutive killing, the Baltimore Sun reported that news of the murders caused few black women to be on the streets at night, and black service workers were refusing to go to work after dark. News reports also noted that similarities of the victims in the case. By the end of 1911, 15 women, all black or dark-skinned, all in their early 20s, have been murdered in the same manner. The victims were described as good-looking and neatly dressed, with many of them having received an education. The murders were all described as having been committed with a knife or other sharp object, with their gruesome being of particular note. The murderer would rip, tear, and mutilate the bodies of the victims after death. One victim, 40-year-old Lena Sharp, was described as having her head almost severed. And in the search for the suspects, the search for the serial killer named the Atlanta Ripper by the press found 6 different suspects, but no convictions were ever made, nor the crime ever solved. The Ripper may have had as many as 21 victims, but there is no conclusive proof that the murders were carried out by one person. A series of murders also drew attention to broader challenges within Atlanta policing and social environment during the early 1910s. Newspapers at the time reported that the residents in the affected neighborhoods expressed concern about the pace of the coordination of the investigations. As the number of victims increased, both black and white-owned newspapers called for more organized investigative efforts, noting that the investigative strategies often shifted from one suspect to another without producing clear evidence. Police officials publicly stated that they were pursuing multiple leads, but available records show that the suspects were frequently arrested and later released when no substantive connections to the crimes have been established. In addition to investigative difficulties, the surrounding community as well as local newspapers didn't give these murders the same level of attention in local newspapers as other cases at the time. Cases such as the case of Daisy Grace were covered more extensively in Atlanta newspapers. The Atlanta Ripper murders. It was reported that the daughter of one of the victims, who was also attacked by the assailant, had caught sight of the attacker. She described him as a large black man who was powerfully built and neatly dressed. So that's a little bit on that one. Feeling it was an inside job. Yep. I was watching Avatar. It's okay. Seen that thousands of times. I love to investigate there. That said, hey, Grancer, welcome in. Hey, Russell. Hope all is well. Trying to watch you by having a lot of buffering. This is around the time I have internet issues. Yeah, it does sound more like a hate crime. But again, this was another one that was never solved. Hey, Hernan Brancho, welcome in. Sure you heard that Brent Thomas, the Paranormal Portal, passed away over a week ago, heart attack. He was in his mid-50s. Yeah, I did hear that. My condolences to his family. Yeah, Kathy, road trip. That'd be cool to go check out some of these places. I've always wanted to go to New Orleans too, so but yeah, that's what it seems like. It seems like it's probably a hate crime. Yeah, we'd have to come to California though to get you, Nicole. There's places I like to investigate in California too. So, our next one we're going to move on to is, I don't know if you guys remember this. This actually happened. This didn't happen in the United States. This happened in the Philippines. I don't know if you remember the Ann Arbor Hospital murders. Another case that went unsolved, which happened at this hospital right here. Right, Jeanette? Yeah, New Orleans. But it happened in this hospital here. Right? Driving in California. I hear it's nasty driving in California. But these were the two nurses that were accused of it, but were never convicted because they didn't have enough evidence. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I wish I could have got on to his show. But the Ann Arbor murders, hospital murders, were murders of 10 patients by unauthorized administration in their IV of the cure drug Pavilion in the Ann Arbor, Michigan VA. Oh, it's Ann Arbor, Michigan. Okay. They were Filipino nurses. Okay. I got that a little messed up. Okay. In the Ann Arbor, Michigan VA hospital in 75, after a vast FBI investigation into the deaths, the nurses Filipina Narcios and Lorena Perez were charged with murder, but convicted only for the charges of poisoning and conspiracy. Public opinion was against the prosecution of the nurses on the bias that they could have had only the most trivial of possible motives for conspiring to commit such extremely serious crimes, and the case was dropped after a retrial had been ordered. Homicides and investigations during a few months in 1975, patients of the VA hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan began suffering respiratory failure and sometimes died with extraordinary frequency. In a single 20-minute period on a day in mid-August, 3 patients required emergency treatment to save their lives, and the chief of anesthesiology found that the patients responded to an antidote for a paralyzing drug, and so called in the FBI. The case series was written in the New England Journal in 1975. Investigators found that the nurse, Filipina Narciso, had been on duty in the relevant ward during the every poisoning, and she was identified by a patient as the nurse who had injected something into his IV just before his breathing suddenly stopped. The nurse, Lorna Perez, was also identified by another patient as having injected his IV just before his respiratory arrest occurred. But like the patient who had identified Narciso, he died before the trial. The case against Narciso and Perez was considered by the Assistant U.S. Attorney General Richard Delonius to be highly circumstantial, but the defense lawyers felt that it was murder considered by the jury, and other charges was of poisoning. Both defendants were recent immigrants to the United States, and the trial was marred by accusations of racism. One man, originally slated to be the lead witness for the prosecution, referred to Perez and Narciso as a slant-eyed bitches, and asserted that there was a nationwide conspiracy of Filipino nurses to murder veterans. Also, racial tensions ran high because of the country's large rate of immigration from Asia. The 2 defendants were primary, but not always the only nurses on duty during the poisonings. The prosecution emphasized the regular proximity of the defendants to poison patients. Crucial evidence came from the relative of the victims, who testified that one of the defendants had been in the room and doing something to the bedside equipment just before he suddenly stopped breathing. The significance of the evidence that the defendants had been in the room shortly before was that the injections of Pavilion, according to the prosecution experts, must have been administered only minutes before the victims had suffered paralysis and stopped breathing. Narciso and Perez were acquitted of the murder charge, but both nurses were found guilty of 3 counts of poisoning and conspiracy to poison patients. Verdicts in appeal. Pacifico Marcos, the president of the Philippine Medical Association and younger brother of Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos, headed defense fund and called the verdict a miscarriage of justice. In February of the following year, the judge set aside the guilty verdicts by ruling that the jury which had deliberated for 15 days and acquitted on the only remaining murder charge and some of the poisoning charges, have been influenced by what mounted as prejudicial presentation of the prosecution's case during the trial. The new attorney general declined to mount another prosecution, reportedly because of the American public was not behind the prosecution of the nurses, and the defendants were unlikely to make the mistake of exposing themselves to cross-examination again. Narciso and Perez had suffered as a result of their lengthy trial process. Prosecution of Narciso and Perez for the murders became a focal point for many protest groups and Filipinos who united in their condemnation of the handling of the case and exported support for the nurses. In popular culture, in 1976, Filipino actor Joseph Estrada, later president of the Philippines, starred in produced the Filipino film Dateline Chicago, Arrest the Nurse Killer, which depicted the murder accusations against Filipina Narciso and Lorena Perez, which many of you know. Philip Estrada, he played in the TV show Chips back in the day. I heard of the Villisca murder house. Yep, the Velisca Axe Murder House. Yep. You're always welcome back on my show too. Yeah, just holler at me. My schedule's kind of crazy, so just holler at me and we'll get something set up. Writing my third book, Haunted Ward. It's getting more intense. Nice. Yeah, I'm trying to get my book finished. Like I said, my schedule is just kind of nuts. We are so busy. So it's pretty much done. It's just got to be sent out and published, which will be coming along here soon. And I've been working on the movies that I wrote. Hey, Carol, welcome in. But yeah, I mean, they were acquitted of their acts of what they did. But I mean, again, another one that was never solved. I mean, there was other nurses in that hospital, so the same time they were when the poisonings happened. So what's saying some of the other nurses doing, but why, what would possess them to attack veterans? Why attack the military veterans for that? I mean, I get it that probably because of the several wars that went on overseas and stuff with the Americans and stuff like that, maybe that could have contribute to what they did. I mean, with World War II, most of these were probably World War II veterans and Vietnam veterans, stuff like that. So, yeah, that's right. Eric Estrada. Yeah, I got that name. Yeah, Eric Estrada. I think Phillips related to him somehow. I think. Don't hold me to that, but yeah, that's right. Eric Estrada was in Chips. But our next one, we're going to move on because we only got about 15 minutes left. I'm only going to do an hour tonight. It's another one that happened in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know if anybody's heard of the Atlanta Lovers Lane murders. This was another case that went unsolved. No suspects. And they would just attack them. But we're going to go through this one. The Atlanta Lovers Lane murders were a series of unsolved shooting attacks on 3 different couples in Atlanta, Georgia in early 1977, which left 3 dead, 3 others injured. The same gun, a .38 caliber pistol, was used in all 3 shootings, which suggested that single perpetrator was responsible for all 3 attacks. However, no suspect has ever been apprehended. The shootings, murder of LaBrian Lovett and Veronica Hill at around 2 a.m. on February 12, 1977, 18-year-old Dennis Langston and 17-year-old Detra Tatum were having sex in a parked car in West Manor Park when an unknown individual approached the passenger window and fired 6 shots. One of the bullets hit Dennis and another hit Detra. Both teens were still alive but were seriously injured and they were rushed to the hospital. Dennis and Detra would later make a full recovery. Teens said that they got a quick look at the shooter but were only able to identify him as a tall black male. The bullets the perpetrator fired were tested and it was determined that they came from the same gun that killed LaBrian Lovett and Veronica Hill the month earlier. The murder of Dennis Diane Collins on March 12, 1977, 20-year-old Diane Collins was with her fiance in Adams Park. They had seen a movie earlier that evening and they were closing out their date there. The couple did not see the gunman as he drew near their vehicle. The attacker fired 6 rounds through the passenger side window. Killing Collins, her fiance was wounded in the head but survived. After the attack, he managed to drive the car to his home where he phoned for an ambulance. The investigation, it was not until late March that police revealed to the public that the three shootings were linked. The same gun was used in all three, and the modus operandi was the same. During the investigation, detectives noticed a pattern in the dates of the shootings. They theorized the killer was following a 3-week schedule. As the second shooting occurred 26 days after the first shooting, and the third shooting occurred 28 days after the second one, they thought if the killer was following a 3-week-old schedule, then he would strike between the 6 and 8 of April. Between those days, undercover cops scoped out Adams Park and West Manor Park, waiting for the killer to strike. However, the killer failed to appear on either of the 6th, 7th, or 8th. In fact, the killer is not believed to have ever struck again. Nevertheless, police still investigated the murders until attention was diverted to the Atlanta child murders, and they started spending more time focusing on that. By 1980, police said that the investigation into the Lover's Lane shootings had come to a dead end, with no new suspects having been identified. Over the following 40-plus years, the case has sat cold. So, case that has never been solved, which is weird. They never caught the guy. They never found out who did it. You see it depicted in some of the movies too. You'll see they use it a lot in slasher movies where the couples are in their car doing something and the killer shows up and has their way with them. And but yeah, that's another one that's unsolved. I wonder if they can get a legit psychic medium to go out there where the murders happen and actually see. And who knows, that killer may be gone. He may be dead by now. He may have passed on by now. Yeah, that is sad. He went after teenagers and young adults. Yeah, like Friday the 13th. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that would be cool to take psychics out there and let the psychics walk around, see what energy they get. Because these killers, when they go into these locations, they're leaving a little bit of their energy in there and they're leaving their imprint in these locations as well. So, I mean, you figure that's what they're doing. So, and these killers, they don't go to heaven when they pass on. They're stuck down here. They go down to hell because they're doing the devil's work. So, yeah, I couldn't find any pictures on it, on where you may be able to look it up and find where the exact thing happened and try to remote view. Yeah, see what you pick up on it. I'd love to hear what you pick up on it. I mean, again, you got for the New Orleans axe murders, there's the map of it. And then that again, the hospital, that all that poisoning happened to the veterans. I mean, but that axe murderer one in New Orleans sounds exactly like Velisca. It sounds exactly like the same motive as Velisca axe murder house. Right? Yeah, give it a try. See what you come up to. I want to be with a woman in my truck listening to Beyond Life Paranormal Research. Is that weird? It might, yeah, she may jump in your lap, Granzer, because the way I scare people, you never know. Atlanta child murders are also, yeah, that is. I did find that next serial killer episode I do. That'll probably I'll do that one. The child murders. I also like to keep a recorder on. Yeah, yeah, because you never know what's going to come through, what EVPs you might catch doing that. Damn. And but yeah, for those of that just tuned in, here are some of the events we're going to be at. Bordertown Paracon, Saturday, August 8th. My dad and I are presenters. My cousin Kathy will be there. So, and then we're headlining Crypticon KC this year. So, for the paranormal. Yeah, the alphabet murders have never been caught either. Yeah, there was a lot of children that were murdered during that time. Yeah, I was reading on that last night when I was doing research. I found that, and there's quite a few listed that have never been solved either. That just turned up cold. I mean, look at some of the missing persons cases that turn up cold too. That are just like cold cases. I mean, look at that one we were working, Carol, with that military veteran. This is going on his third or fourth year now that he's been missing, and they still haven't found him. Which we need to do some more remote viewing on that too as well, and see if we can come up with some more on him, and see if we can get a headway on that. Like I said, I did find his trail where he had left from and where he was headed and where he had gotten dropped off to. So, yes, I would love to go to that park where I felt like he was. Yeah, that'd be cool to go down there and check that out. Feel it's Yeah, I mean, it's quite coincidence that there's a guy that owns a jazz bar, and all of a sudden he wasn't doing very good, and then he went around and he said if you play jazz music, he wouldn't murder nobody, and all of a sudden his bar is starting to do business, and he's starting to make the money, and then all of a sudden it just stops. Are you going to try to go to the Caribbean? Yeah. Probably not this year, Granzer. We are booked this year. Yeah, you could. Hey, Rebecca, welcome in. I mean, Granzer, we're at this one, and then right after that weekend, we're at that one at Crypticon, and then September we're in Kentucky at the West Kentucky Paranormal Expo, And then right after that, we're at the Rock Island Roadhouse Esoteric Expo in October. And then October 15th and 16th, I'm helping out with the haunted house at the movie theater again this year. And then November, we're at the Beatty Mansion investigating with my buddy Ken10 Paranormal, who I did the Glen House with. We were supposed to do Emmaus Asylum with them, but with me, it's the same weekend I'm helping out at the movie theater, so that's all right. but yeah, we're really busy this year. We got a lot going on this year, and between the business stuff of it that I'm doing and doing the merch and the shirts and stuff like that. If you guys are interested in shirts, check out Beyond Life Paranormal Research LLC on Facebook, and I've got shirt designs on there. We do take orders for them. Also, the 3D printed items are on there as well, so we take orders for them too. Just message the page for the 3D printed items. That my cousin Kathy has access to the page. She'll be able to take your order on that. Shirts, I'll be able to take your order on those too. Testing the AI apps. Yeah, so do I. I don't sit still. Yeah, we're starting to feel a lot better. We're starting to get better here. Like I said, I can't go into details, but life really took an unexpected twist for us just after Galena Days event that we were at. That's why we've been on the long hiatus. But we are back now. Yeah, I remember when you were private message me on that, Rebecca, because Carol knows about it. I've got something going in the works for that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here for the night. I will be on Sunday night, our scheduled time, 8:30, and probably with Carol and Rebecca. And we're back to our regular schedule Friday nights, unless I'm at a convention, then I won't be able to do it. But I thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Remember, if you're being bullied in the paranormal field, you do have a voice. Nobody's better than anybody in this field. We're all after the same common goal, to prove the existence of life after death. So with that being said, everybody have a good night. Stay safe out there if you're investigating this weekend. Safe travels, and don't take life for granted, because it can always end at an instant. So that being said, everybody, God bless, stay safe, and we will see you Sunday night, 8:30 Central. Russell, the next guest you should try and get on is Shira Azaka, Word the Road Go podcast. That is another that I am really enjoying. All right. Yeah, I was bullied when I first started. Long story. Yeah, there's no reason you need to be bullied in this field. That's like there's posts going out on Facebook now that people are getting thrown out of the field. Nobody can throw anybody out of this field. It's your choice if you want to leave the field or you want to stay. Nobody can throw anybody out of this field. The level of drama that's been going on the past couple of weeks I've been reading is just garbage. And people just need to stop. It's not accomplishing anything. I mean, it's just making yourself look bad. I mean, why? Why do it? I mean, it's like the Warrens, trashing the Warrens. What's that do? Nothing. They're gone. Leave them be. Let them rest. Russell, my complaint is that you are live against some heavy hitters, so viewers may be lower.
Foreman Brothers and Lon Strickler are live right now. Wait an hour and you'll be spot on. Yeah, I don't worry about that. I appreciate the viewers that do view me. I'm not in it like they are for the fame and the fortune. Yeah, there's no reason you have to give up. You shouldn't have to give up something you like doing. If you're passionate about it, keep doing it. Like us, we were ready to walk away when that whole group trashed us. And we're like, no, we're not going to quit. Obviously, if you're pissing them off, you're doing something right. So I despise slasher and horror movies, but I just love the Universal Studio monster movies. Oh, come on, Gary. You gotta love the horror slasher. You just gotta keep the mindset that it's not real. It's just acting. I left several groups because of it. Yeah, I mean, there's groups out there that bully. Hey, Ambry, welcome in. Yeah, stay away from the drama. You don't need it. We've had our share, and you know how it goes. We get our share of it too because of who we're related to, but we don't care. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Good night, Russell. Sunday you were up against the world, Bigfoot Central, another heavy hitter. That's all right. Like I said, I'm not worried about view count. I'm not in it for the views. I'm in it to educate people, and maybe they can see my podcast and they can relate to it. They've had that experience and they can take something from it and learn from it. What has been going on? Oh, there's been a bunch of drama going on Facebook with teams and stuff. People running their mouths and the usual paranormal drama. Yeah, some do get super territorial. You see it all the time. It's all about, it's my investigation, my location. I don't want you in it. I mean, it's just nonsense. We don't deal with it. I mean, we've been, like I said, we've been the subject of it as well too. So, but we don't care. We're going to continue to keep doing our thing. And I mean, that's like the ones that trash my family's group, Nesper. I mean, do you notice something? They don't respond to you. So why do you keep trashing them? They don't respond to you because they don't want to be bothered with you. They're just going to continue to keep going on. And that's what I learned from the late Dan Rivera too. You just keep moving forward. Use it as motivation. And that's what I do. But that being said, I'm going to get off here for the night. I thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. And we will see you Sunday, 8:30. Everybody, God bless. Have a good night. I still haven't changed the outro yet, but ignore the Saturday night. Like I said, towards winter when we slow down, I'll probably do more shows. Yeah, Ambry, he's good. So with that being said, once we slow down, I'll probably do a Saturday night show too. Will do, Carol. I will say hi to him. He's actually watching, so. But everybody have a good night. Stay safe out there, and we will see you Sunday night, 8:30 Central. Have a good one, everybody. God bless. Stay safe.